Okay, close your eyes and just imagine for a second that it's the late 1st century. The year 70 CE has come and gone, and it brought with it the absolute devastation of Jerusalem. The Roman legions have completely crushed your city, they've destroyed the sacred temple, and they've left your people scattered, enslaved, and grieving. If you were a 1st century Jewish person living under the shadow of the Roman Empire, your entire world has literally just collapsed. And the agonizing question echoing across your entire community would be, has the God of our fathers finally abandoned us? Have we somehow sinned beyond return? Is the story just over?
Well, welcome to The Explainer. Today we aren't just looking at some dry, dusty piece of ancient theology. We are actually going to decode a brilliantly crafted 1st century survival manual. We're treating the book of Revelation not as this confusing mysticism, but as an exhilarating historical mystery that's just waiting to be unpacked. By looking at the grammar and the historical context, we'll discover how a prophet managed to send a deeply subversive message of hope right under the noses of the Roman Empire.
All right, let's dive into the roadmap for today. First up, hope in dark times. Second, decoding Revelation 1:4. Then, grace and peace, followed by the burning bush connection. And finally, an unbroken covenant. Let's break down these clues piece by piece.
Starting off with Section 1, Hope in Dark Times, the Roman Shadow. To really grasp the gravity of this text, we have to understand the sheer geopolitical and spiritual crisis of the late 1st century.
So, after the destruction of Jerusalem, the surviving rabbinic sages and prophetic voices found themselves in a practically impossible situation. They desperately needed to offer hope and encouragement to a completely distressed, hopeless and helpless people. But how do you tell your people that Rome won't actually have the final say without instantly being executed for treason? Roman authorities weren't exactly known for their sense of humor about rebellions. These leaders needed a way to communicate that the ancient promises of God were still valid, but they had to do it safely.
Which brings us to Section 2, Decoding Revelation 1:4, a brilliant code. This is where we uncover the literary solution to this massive historical problem.
Their solution? Apocalyptic literature. Now, coming from the Greek word apocalypsis, this is a really unique Jewish form of prophetic writing that reveals visions of the end times using coded terms. And what's absolutely brilliant here is its dual function. See, to a Roman guard listening in, this text sounded like absolute religious nonsense, just bizarre visions of beasts and numbers. But to the Jewish people, it was a highly sophisticated code. It was a secret survival manual, absolutely loaded with Torah Easter eggs designed to educate, inspire, and direct their faith.
Take our master text for today, Revelation chapter 1, verse 4. It says, "Grace to you and peace from him who is and who was and who is to come." Now that seems like a totally standard religious greeting, right? But actually, this single sentence is incredibly dense with historical codes and deep scriptural cross-references. Let's start picking it apart.
Moving right into Section 3, Grace and Peace, the Aaronic Blessing. Let's zoom in on the very first clue, which is right at the start of the verse.
So the author is writing in Greek, literally saying grace and peace. But to his audience, their brains instantly translate that back to the Hebrew hen veshalom. Historical linguistics show us that this phrase is highly likely a direct callback to the famous Aaronic benediction from the Hebrew scriptures. The ultimate priestly blessing, where God's name dwells upon the people, totally enveloping them in his grace and peace. For people sitting in exile, it is a deeply comforting reminder of God's presence.
And get this, the coding goes literally all the way down to the author's own name. The author identifies himself as John, which in Hebrew is Yohanan, and that's a name that literally translates to "the Lord is gracious." So it's not just a signature at the bottom of a page, even his name is a deliberate, encoded reminder of divine grace being sent to a distressed and traumatized people. Literally every single detail is designed to convey compassion.
Let's jump to Section 4, the burning bush connection, an Exodus flashback. We're going to focus on the incredibly strange, almost clunky way God is named in the second half of this verse. Think about this phrase for a second, from him who is and who was and who is to come. Grammatically speaking, that's highly unusual, but scholars recognize this isn't just weird poetry, it's a literal retranslation of the divine name. It's a massive historical flashback designed to grab the reader's mind, pull it out of the Roman Empire, and transport it back to one specific, monumental moment in their history.
And that moment is Exodus chapter 3 at Mount Sinai. Picture it. Moses is standing barefoot before the burning bush. At this point in history, the Israelites are enslaved in Egypt, crying out in bondage, which, by the way, feels a whole lot like what the first century audience was suffering under Rome. Moses asks God, "When I go to the people, what is your name? What do I even tell them?"
Now this is where grammar turns into pure drama. If we look at the translations, in most English Bibles, God answers Moses with the present tense, I am that I am. But the original biblical Hebrew is actually, I will be that which I will be. You see, biblical Hebrew doesn't focus on past, present, and future time the exact same way English does. Instead, it focuses on the type of action. And the grammar used for God's name right here is the imperfect or incomplete action.
To understand why that is so incredibly powerful, think about it like this. A perfect action means something is completely finished in the past. If you drink a cup of coffee down to the last drop, it's done. Perfect. But an imperfect action is incomplete. It's an ongoing action that started in the past, continues right now in the present, and is going to push forward into the future. By using the imperfect tense for his name, God is basically saying that his covenant promises, this grand rescue mission he started centuries ago, is an incomplete action. He is still actively working on it. He isn't finished yet.
Which perfectly sets up Section 5, an unbroken covenant, eternally consistent. Let's tie all these incredible linguistic clues together to see the master message.
So, the crucial point really pops when we think about this as a timeline. By calling God Him who is, and who was, and who is to come, Yohanan is essentially proving to his first century audience that the God who operated in the past, the one who made promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and rescued Moses from Egypt, is the exact same God operating in their oppressive Roman present. And he's the same God who already holds their future. His character is just utterly, completely consistent across all of time.
When you finally parse this single verse through its intended historical lens, an incredibly powerful anti-imperial message emerges. It reveals that God's character is eternally consistent. It secretly promises that the mighty Roman Empire, despite all its iron and terror, absolutely does not have the final say over history. And most importantly, it assures a traumatized people that their ancient covenant remains completely unbroken.
And why does this matter? Because this unbroken covenant ensures their survival. Their ultimate mandate was to serve as a kingdom of priests meant to bring light to the nations and eventually see the restoration of creation back to an Eden-like state. Even sitting there in chains, even living in exile, this hidden message reminded them that their identity was intact and their destiny was entirely secure.
It really makes you pause, doesn't it? We've just decoded this massive, subversive message of survival and unbroken promises, and it was all hidden right there within the grammar of a single ancient greeting. It leaves us with this final, really provocative thought. If one sentence from the first century can hide such profound hope right beneath the surface, what else might we be missing in the history we think we already know? Keep asking questions, keep decoding the past, and hey, thank you so much for exploring with us today.